Welcome to the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Join your hosts, three-time WBFF world champions and WBFF royalty, Alicia Gowans and Stephanie Ayala McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
All right, so welcome back, everybody, to what is a very exciting episode because it is the first episode of 2023.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Happy New Year, everyone.
And it's also the first recording we've had in a little while because obviously we had end of year, my prep, just crazy times coming out of the back end of that. This is the first chance we've had to connect in because Steph's been a lady of leisure and has been doing trips to Mexico and she's got not so great things that happen.
And I mean, Miss, I've been to Dubai and I was over, on top of the world. I mean, all this travel, guys, what we're talking about is that we've all just been on the road and on the go. So it's been very difficult to connect on different time zones.
And actually, the one thing that I do love, which is evident across both of our situations, is quality family time and quality in non-fitness, hyper-focus related places, which is really nice. It doesn't mean we stop on our fitness goals, people, when we will regroup on this and cover some of this conversation, but it's just not so hyper focused. It is not so numero uno in our priority. We've 100% got more balance in our life when we're not in that function, and I think that's really important to cover off. And we like I said, we will regroup to this, but the end of the year last year was just crazy, and I'm very happy to report that I no longer do my work on my treadmill on the back deck. Woo! Go me. I'm loving this for me.
Congratulations, Ali. I mean,
100% good for me.
Going into that, because last we spoke and if you follow these podcasts, we were leading into the show and Ali was like doing some crazy amount of steps and cardio. I mean, ridiculous amount to where, you guys heard the aggressiveness that she was doing. So guys, what an amazing show though. Like, I just kind of want to quickly go all the way back and just recap right about Atlantic City Pro-Am finisher of the year. It was incredible to just, I don't know, the vibe. I don't know if anyone listening to this that was there or
vibe.
It was such an amazing vibe. It was, I don't know, such a really good way to finish, I guess. Also, and Ali, what an amazing showing. Like you heard me. I'm sure you freaking heard me. I was yelling and screaming, I love you.
I couldn't stop smiling on stage for two reasons. And I actually had like this moment where I was like super emotional. I thought I might actually cry, which, as you know, that's a big call because I'm not an emotional person. But I walked out and the first thing that I could hear was Steph.
I was just yelling at the top of my lungs, telling how much I love her. And I genuinely mean that. You looked incredible though. Like, you always have this presence, and her body, I understand she had a hard prep, but still came through. Like, I know the difficulty, I guess, that it comes down to just being able mentally to surpass some of those, I guess, mental barriers that we put on ourselves.
100%. And look, I stepped out on stage and I could hear Steph, so it was beautiful. And that was actually really strange for me because Steph and I are always backstage together. So I have actually never had her be in front of stage. And I had that moment of, oh, far out, man. Like, this will be my worst performance I've ever given because this is my first one in 3 years and my first one post baby. And I'm going to delve into this a little bit more because this is actually, quite a powerful conversation to have, so you guys can get some insight into the way that my brain was sitting on this leading into this, because it was very different for me. But my other emotional moment where I just had so much fun up there, regardless of how I felt, because I could see my son in the audience with Christos. So I could physically see him, and he's sitting there wearing this little suit that Dad had made up that was go Ali, it was go Team Ali's Angels, and then it was, let's go Mum, and it was super cute. And he's got him up and he's throwing him up in the air, and I could hear you and I could see them, and I'm like, oh my God, don't. Normally in my head, I'm thinking, don't fall over. In my head, this time I'm like, don't you fucking cry. You're going to ruin your makeup, right? So I had this big emotional moment on stage that was really quite, different for me. And the other thing is I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. And I don't usually have that problem either. Like I'm smiley, but I'm a mix between smiling and quite serious. And I just couldn't stop smiling the entire time. I got
the best smile though. If everyone meets Ali, I think they just kind of get stunned and they're like, and I saw it happen at every time we had the events like registration or media day, like Ali would come up or someone would come up to Ali and they would just kind of stop talking and just stare at her. And it's just because Ali has this power of just being able to keep this smile on. And she just, again, I guess everyone was very shocked and realizing, wow, Ali did it, right? Like I kept seeing it on people's faces, like she looks amazing. Like she actually is human.
And that, you know what, this is the thing, this is the key to it, I think. My competition walking into that was always me. It was never anyone else. It was always me, right? And my competition, I knew I wouldn't beat her because I knew I couldn't present my best. I couldn't beat my best, right? Not in the time frame I had, not in the approach we had to take to stage, not with the aggressive strategies we had to adopt for that short space of time. It was just not possible. And I knew that already. So I had this really weird feeling walking into the stage where I was on this complete polarizing viewpoint where I was so fucking proud of myself and so happy and so blown away by what I achieved, regardless of all the variables against me and in the short time I had. But also at that same time, you've got this thing in you going, man, we are nowhere near our usual level, right? And so it was this really big dichotomy of, don't dare you take away from yourself this win, because this is a win. What you've just done is something that no one else could do, probably. No one else probably would attempt it or try. And everyone else that had babies on that stage, babies were significantly older than mine, right? So it's like, all right, I've done this crazy thing post a C-section. Like, who the fuck does that? And I had to remind myself of that a few times where I was like, don't put too much pressure on yourself to be this, because where, give it time and you will be, and you'll surpass it again. I had to just remind myself of that. And I think it's powerful for everyone to hear this.
Yes, super big, you guys. Yeah. Listen to exactly how her thought process just went through, because I think we lose sight of that. And we have to, even us as, champions, or it doesn't matter if you've won or you're a pro, if you're a beginner or amateur, it's more about how you truly remind yourself that no matter where you are in your journey, you have to kind of remember that it takes time. And that right there is the biggest power, that you understand and okay, I had the limited time and I did my best. And I think that goes the most for a message for any competitor out there listening, maybe thinking they fell short and they let the win completely go out the window because they didn't realize the win was before the stage.
Exactly. And so I had several people come and hunt me down after the show, right, to see how I was feeling, make sure I was okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm like all smiles. I'm super happy. Christos and I were eating the most amazing meal together, and I couldn't be negative about it. I was stoked to get second place.
It was a tough lineup. Like, you guys ended up kind of fighting off at the end. And I mean, congratulations to Carol, who walked away with the crown. I mean,
at the end of the day, phenomenal. Her glutes were twice the size of mine, and mine were half the size they usually are, right? So I know if I had been presenting what I normally present,
her core, I mean, and I think this is another thing whenever you think of it, whenever you go into the C-section, Ali's core, of course, wasn't her best that she brought.
I couldn't actually train abs. This is the other thing. I hadn't been able to train abs yet. I was only just starting some little things, but in a complete deficit with an aggressive strategy to stage, there's no chance that I was going to be able to block them out. But we already knew this. And I actually had this conversation with you. I was like, man, it's not going to look like it normally does, because I'm up against it in these couple of areas. And I just got to hope that what I'm presenting.
But Ali, you defied all odds, and you totally went up there and slayed. And again, just really shut a lot of people up, and I loved it. And I really did. I was just, it is what it is when it comes down to people kind of speculating and saying, like, is that really going to be doable? right? But you know what? It's like kind of just closing your mouth and actually knowing, I know how hard you work and I just know your work ethic. So I was just expecting, I was over here waiting with popcorn, like, just like, what is she going to do? And then I couldn't hold back. But
the way I look at it too is that this was my opportunity just to take the temperature of where I'm at and where the show's at and the categories at. And, you know, it was actually really good exercise for me because it showed me exactly the areas that I needed to bring up, but they were also the areas that I was aware I had lost size in throughout, you know, IVF and pregnancy, that I had not been able to train for strength to gain, you know, size in it really in that time frame. So I was aware of all those things. So the cool thing was that that's treatable, fixable, and that's that was what I was expecting, right?
So this reverse post show has obviously looked very, very differently for you, right? Walk us through kind of how have you, since from, you know, of course, post show to now to the new year, how you've managed and how you're feeling and how you've approached it.
And for me on that stage coming off too, and knowing that, hey, that was also an opportunity for me to dust cobwebs off. I hadn't been on a stage in 3 years, guys. So it was like, right, I'm just finding my feet again with this stage. I'm just connecting back into it. So there were a couple of things that came out of it for me. And it was, you know, okay, the physical things where it was irrefutable. You know, Carol had these big blocky abs that I just didn't have yet. And her glutes were much bigger than mine. So, you know, from front, it's those blocky abs coming through, but I can report and showcase on all my stories in real time right now. I've got my blocks coming back in my off season. So come stage next time, having worked them now, because I'm training them, you know, at the end of every session, they're getting hit in maintenance and surplus calories with the viewpoint of rehabilitating.
Yeah, that's right. And I love that you're doing it that frequently, because I think so many people demonize, like, you know, that core training or doing it with time under tension, or adding the fact that it needs to be trained like a muscle. And I think that that's actually that overload that we miss as competitors, and we wait for diet to really kind of come through. And don't get me wrong, nutrition is key here, but you guys just watched, Ali did probably the, you know, obviously a very, very low calorie approach, as well as you know, of doing a large deficit. So it wasn't the food and nutrition that would magically bring her abs. It's the fact that she had lost some mass. She needed to be able to connect with it. And
wasn't still healed. Also, you know, couldn't actually train to progressively overload on them. So now I'm only just starting to, right? So I had to bring up that, and I had to bring up glutes. So they're the two focal points when we look at, you know, the physique building, to take me back where I need to be back up at the realms where I usually sit, right? So again, you'll notice the only time that I'm even mentioning, which I'm giving credit where credit's due, these were the body parts that she dominated me on, because that was facts. That's the only time I'm referencing it. I'm not looking at it and going, hey, I need to be better than this person, that person, this person. I'm looking at it and going, yep, okay, great. I already knew that. I was already very aware and conscious of the fact that I had deflated in size in my glutes. So they're already my zone anyway, but it was just better confirmation when you can see the comparative lineup, right? So, okay, I've acknowledged that. Now off I go. And the only thing I focus on again is me and looking at where I normally sit and bridging the gap. So again, I'm not looking at anyone else. I'm not traveling down any other lane. I'm staying in my own, and I'm just focusing on the things I need to do to bring me up, right? Because my competition is me, and I haven't beat me yet because I haven't brought something better than the last win. So I won myself, you know, some great personal sense of accomplishment. And I think definite respect in the industry by people that didn't think that I could do it, or that were blown away by what I achieved. So I'm happy with that. That for me is a massive win. And I feel really positive from the whole experience. I've done AC, you know, many times as a coach, judged it, and now stepped on stage again post a hiatus. And this was my most fun stage. This was the most fun AC experience I've ever had, because it was done across, you know, very different to usual. This Pro-Am was run more like a mini Worlds, and it had, you know, the multi-day events, and we had, you know, a whole bunch of just fun stuff leading into the actual show, which was cool. It was really cool. And I was backstage with incredible women. I got to meet so many amazing people. Like, I am just so overwhelmed by by the lovely women that were backstage that I got to chat with, take photos with, just talk mum stuff with. So many mums backstage that were coming up to me and just like, I have loved following your journey. It's insane. And I'm like, I fucking know, right?
That's the best though. I mean, honestly, that's how we connected though, Ali, right? Like not over the kids, but over backstage. It was like just that connection. And I think that's just the power also of the WBFF and the competing and just the camaraderie and also the like-mindedness that everybody has within this community. It's just like we're all so similar in so many ways, whether if that's to personalities or if that is in lifestyle or, you know, of course, what we're going through. And you are inspiring, you know, other women. And I hope that the mothers that are listening, because we do have a lot of mothers that listen in and listen to this podcast. And
we have a lot of women that think that once they're a mum, they can't do this stuff, right? Or that's it's not possible. And I think that this was what I loved being able to do, was just show that anything is literally possible if you've got the right, you know, team around you, but more importantly, just a die hard, don't give up, no quit, no going back attitude at it. You can get it. It's 100% achievable. Yes. It's not easy. And what I did was insane, but I just refused to quit. Right. So,
and we're not saying to go to Ali extreme. No, we're just referring to, you know, it's doable, you know, it's definitely something, it's an extreme, but we do, of course, just want to put this as an example that what you do set out to do, whether if that's a competition or whether if that is just to achieve a weight loss goal, a target, maybe just for measurements, just to get just baby weight back off, right? Like there are so many things that you can achieve, and just don't write that story of, well, I've already had a kid, I'm just kind of destroyed. My stomach is not going to look the same. I'm not going to get abs back. I'm losing my mass forever. Like you're just kind of telling yourself that, you're putting yourself down, and you do have to remember that you can make a comeback and make it even stronger than you were before. Exactly. You really can come out and be even better because you don't want to go back.
Look at Ciara. Look at her.
Oh man, I cannot even express the proudness.
That's of course. Someone who's come back better than. Do you know what I mean? In everything. So it's like, yes, that can be done. And this is why it blows my mind when I hear women say, I don't want to ruin my body by having a child. And like, the only thing that you ruin if you let it's going to happen if you let it. But the only thing that you really ruin is a lot of opportunity if you wait too long and then it can't happen for you later. Or if you tell yourself and limit yourself to these beliefs in this little box that that's all you can do once it's happened. It's rubbish.
You're just delaying the start, because guess what? You're going to get to a point anyways that you're still going to be fed up with all your bullshit. Exactly. So you need to actually just get with it and actually just start and stop saying that it's because of you having children or because you're pregnant. I have so many women that I actually train that are in pregnancy at the moment. I've had women that literally train all the way up until they're actually pregnant, and you more the most relatable, like you would understand. We watched you train literally giving all the way to birth, you know. Baby George is part of this podcast.
It definitely helped. Like, you know, it prevented me from losing so much mass that I would have looked stupid or had nothing left when I came in. And like by far this was the smallest I've ever come down to in size, but I had to in order to get lean enough, because my composition changed so much from the IVF. And it was super important that I did that in order to fall pregnant. So I had to. But the exciting thing is, and I think coming out of the show and then setting my new goals, is knowing that that was my new starting point, right? I was no longer pushing shit uphill and trying to drop 15 kilos. I was no longer having to do these stupid aggressive approaches to now get prepped for the next stage, because reality is it's about reversing, optimizing my baselines, and then realistically, not as aggressive, not as long. Actually, not as long as I normally take. So I don't think I'm going to take a 20-week cut this time, because I need more time growing the mass that I've lost back. So it's more about, and what we're focused on in this reverse and the current sort of, process that I'm under, is keeping it to a lean build. So we reversed straight away. I came out of the show straight away, straight into maintenance calories. I didn't dick around. I didn't do it slow. I didn't try to mitigate initial scale increases. We just took me straight there so that we could get, health markers back online as quickly as possible, considering how low I had to go and how aggressive
exactly what I was going to say. I was like, your situation is such a special situation because you had to get so low. You were able to probably find your baseline quite quickly by just allowing yourself to, of course, recover, right?
Let me say something, because I think this is important that I share this, because everyone knows that I have an exceptionally good relationship with self and with food. The fact that I have that is the only reason that when I sat down with my team and said, hey, this is what it's going to look like, this is how aggressive it's going to have to be, we did a bit of a risk reward assessment on how low I was going to go, what my EA was going to sit at for how long, which is not anything I would ever allow a client to do. I need to really caveat this, because I would never allow a client to do what I did. They would be told, you're waiting till the next show, right? Absolutely, 100%. No question around it. Don't even.
No. We're like guinea pigs, okay? Like we put ourselves as
the only reason in the risk reward analysis that we deemed it okay was my relationship with self, with food, my history of healthy preps, my history of 2 years in a surplus and great micronutrients being met the whole way through because of pregnancy and everything else, right? So there were a lot of factors that led to this decision where we said, okay, 6 weeks at an EA of only 26, 27, which is never something I would recommend. We're going to do it. We're going to do it because it's only 6-7 weeks, right? So it's short-term risk. And we took it on board and I ran with it. So knowing that though, we also knew that I had to recover that real quick, straight away, straight after. And we also knew that it would probably be highly likely that my cycle coming back post breastfeeding ending, and then it wouldn't come back because the deficit was so high for another extended period, was probably going to be delayed too. And I don't normally have that problem either. Now, I'm saying all these things because this is really important. I'm going to explain why you cannot allow people to prep like this and why you wouldn't, as a coach, feel confident with most people doing it, because I even did a post talking about the fact that I think 90% of women who compete probably shouldn't, because they actually, most of them have underlying disorders or have tendencies to have behaviors, right? They mask it with this process to stage. So I have, no hesitation in saying 90% of people should never approach it like this. But this is a person that in the risk reward analysis with the team, we decided it was okay to do this because of these factors of health and relationship and psychology and mental state, beyond just my healthy metabolic baseline, right? We decided to do it knowing all those factors. So I'm like profoundly good, right? On the scale of things, I'm a low risk factor for negative shit to come out the other side of it. I'm going to be very honest with all of you and say, I've never had a problem with reverses. I've never had a problem with binge eating. I've never had a problem with any of those things. My first 2 to 3 days after the show, I have never experienced such a fucking irrational, insatiable level of hunger. Never, ever, ever have I ever. And so my immediate thought process was, I'm really aware, I'm observing everything, my thoughts, my feelings, my body, like I'm very aware of all of this. Now imagine if I had have been someone that was prepping like that didn't have a good relationship with self, with food, with everything else, that then experienced that irrational, insatiable, unquenchable hunger. Imagine what their post-week,
like an asshole. You go and eat a lot. You just fucking dig yourself in a hole that you can't get out of. That's exactly what happens.
100%.
Over here, been there, done that.
I can 100% understand how that happens right now. I've never experienced that feeling that I experienced. So this was a really cool thing for me because it gave me the
welcome to our world, Ali.
It gave me to understand even more so and become even more so reluctant to allow anyone that has these predispositions of thought processes towards food to even diet in what I would call a semi, end of the scale with maybe a 30% deficit calculation, because you can't control those hormone signals. This is the thing. And they take a while to regulate post a diet. And
you're raging.
Even when you're eating at maintenance calories, you're still going to be experiencing some of the feelings and some of these cravings or whatever you want to label that sensation of wanting more, not feeling satiated, right? So you're still going to feel it. And I would say it took me maybe 2 weeks to get to a point where I was my level of normal for a reverse. So my very first meal that I had like out on the night of show, which by the time I calculated it, I didn't eat shitty shit. I ate a very decadent, indulgent, rich meal, which had like a fatty cut of steak. We had like, there was a lot of stuff. And I had, for the first time in years, a little bit of alcohol. So my whole calculation for that whole day of show plus everything I had after, it came to like 3.5 days worth of planned food. So I ate enough calories in that day and in that particular nighttime feed that I had literally eaten 3 days of food in one day, right? So I can tell you right now, I did not feel great at all. I had the sweat,
the aftermath.
I had the
yeah.
I had it's actually
This is your first time experience this, Ali, because I'm like, bring this microphone closer because I'm about to.
The funny thing was that this was literally not me going and binging on shit. This was me eating what was planned and programmed and calculated for the course of the day for the actual show and peaking, right? Which was already, more calories and more carbs than what I had been having, but then also tacking on this rich, decadent, quite calorie dense meal, even though from a volume perspective, it wasn't crazy, right? So this was my first time doing this. I'd never done this before. And I can't express enough. My data was horrendous. My Oura Ring data, my body temperature was so elevated. My heart rate went through the roof. My heart rate variability was in my fucking socks. It was so low. And I was laying in bed. I felt like I couldn't breathe properly. Anyway, there's actually a name for this. This is what I found super interesting. It's called refeed syndrome. And so there is actually a physical
reaction, and that's actually what I was going to lead into, that I was going to point out that
created by the fasted or low caloric state, and then you essentially, it's technically like overeating, so eating too much too soon. And so so this is the funny part, I ate about 400 calories more than I would normally have in my off season in this one day, right? So not much. It's like literally a snack, an extra snack, more than my off season. But because of how aggressive my diet was for that,
I was going to say, you were in such a low state there.
3 days worth of food
for what you were eating at the moment.
So my body was like, what the fuck?
I've experienced, and this is what you mentioned was actually one of the symptoms. And just like you even said, it is kind of like that aftermath. It's like a after reaction that your body goes through, and people really do put themselves through this. I used to actually, again, be that person that I would like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why am I feeling this way? And why is my body starting to sweat and getting to the point that I am so hot, I literally will be sweating in place, like, because my body is practically like, what the fuck are you giving me? What are you doing? Like, oh, absolutely.
It's just crazy. And it's just because it's this massive big dump all at once, and the body doesn't even know what to do with it. And for me, it was like, wow, okay, this is what all these crazy bitches feel like when they do this binging. And I'm like, couldn't do that to myself because I felt horrendous after just one decadent meal, right? I actually had to get these Pepto-Bismol things, which we don't even get in Australia.
That stuff is lifesavers, dude. Exactly. That's like,
I had like clients giving me these things the next day to try and get my stomach to settle down.
Give you some Tums and some Pepto-Bismol. Probably drink some Sprite. My mom will give you some 7-Up.
Then I went to normal. So then I just came straight from that one day, which was my show day and the meal off. I came into regulated maintenance level calories straight away, which at the maintenance level calorie was a massive increase on what I had been eating anyway, right? But I can't express enough how much better I felt almost immediately. It was game changing for me. And I just remember going to myself, there is no way I never ever want to prep to look like that again. And there is no way
that I feel that way.
Exactly. There's no
and that's I think that tie that we all have to remind and remember. We have to go through it. And I think, again, you've never really gone through it because you don't have bad relationships with food. And I think, again, most competitors, you called it out correctly. Like, most people shouldn't compete. They compete for the wrong reasons. And they have already such underlying habits that are horrible, that are going to really exacerbate throughout the prep. And not only that, they're going to actually create even deeper issues, body dysmorphia, start really looking at themselves with horrible body image. But besides that, it's the fact that they start chronically dieting. There's just so much that, where you said the, horrible diseases, right? Autoimmune diseases that, really come, like the PCOS, really self-induced, right? Most of the time, not always hereditary. Like, again, yes, there's hereditary, very, very much so versions, but a lot of the times it's these women that just hormonally start getting super imbalanced, chronically diet, and do some things that probably shouldn't have been done in the first place.
I did a post a week or so ago. Far out, the amount of responses I got to this post, so funny. I'm like, do yourself a favor and stop following people who, chronically post about their weight, their calories, their body fat in millimeters, their check-ins every single week, and there's a stage not in sight, right? Anyway, I got a very polarizing response to this, because I had a lot of people being like, you need to be able to track macros, you need to be able to do this. I'm like, it's not the tracking that is the problem. It's the hyper focus and the fixation on chronically dieting, because they're fearful of actually letting go of a level of body composition, right? And I made this post because what I have witnessed in the last probably 12 weeks, and sadly, there's a lot of pros that do it. And there was one pro in particular that prompted me to actually write this post. And the reason I wrote it was because when you're a pro, you're in the limelight as a potential role model, right? And
absolutely. That's what the pro status actually means.
So the vocabulary that you use to discuss something really matters, because people will hinge on that and take it as gospel, and they will buy into that, or they will reevaluate their own perspective and their own situation, and then think, well, I'm not doing this and I don't look like that, so there's something wrong with me. And it's this really vicious cycle of where someone else's disordered stuff can bleed on to others and create disorder in others, right? So I'm really careful about what I post always, in the sense where I always think, if this was an impressionable young daughter of mine, how would I want her to read this information? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very important to me. So
I can't support it enough.
Yeah,
like
100%, right? So two things, I think. Being a pro and being able to talk about having a relatively structured and strategic purpose and objective towards a off season, that's important, yes. But I think even in that context, when you're discussing it, it should be discussed with the viewpoint that, hey, I'm not meticulous. Hey, I don't mind putting on some weight. Hey, I'm not going to have abs and I'm cool with that. Hey, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that someone who is, a multiple world champion that has run very strategic off seasons with focus and with some vision and with some purpose and with some tracking. I'm not saying that it's the tracking that's the problem. It would be a problem for me if from year to year in those wins, I avoided putting on body weight. I avoided social settings. I avoided date night with my husband because I was worried about not being able to track and weigh my food. The going on holidays with my kids freaked me out because it meant I wasn't going to have access to a gym. Now, I'm not shitting you. It's conversations like that I'm seeing that made me make that post, because there are a lot of impressionable women and there are a lot of young ones and there are a lot of people that look up to you as a pro. And I believe you need to be mindful of the language you use and the way that you portray, the various seasons of the year for your physique. And I think healthy tracking is 100% fine. There are camps and schools of thoughts on this, that it leads to disorder.
And that's like even talking politics.
No, I think it is just awareness, but flexibility in the process, right? So,
but we have the right to talk about tracking because we are coaches. And this is the thing, we understand the tool. And when we know that it's an actual tool and that's what it's there for, it shouldn't own you. It shouldn't dictate if you're better than anybody. It shouldn't dictate that, if you're really, really owned by tracking, that means that you are just so systematic with your numbers and the numbers have to be nailed to the T. I love the efforts. That's going to be what you need to do when there is a deadline. If there is no deadline, I understand what you're referring to, Ali. Like there is
it's like, that posting that, hey, Stephanie, today I weigh this, my meals came in at this, and, my macros are this, but it's irrelevant right now because I'm not going, you know what I mean? Like it's much easier for me to just say, hey, Steph, I'm cruising in maintenance, babe. Every so many times a week, I'm actually probably in surplus. I'm loving my training. I'm hitting a 5-day split and I'm getting stronger every day. Like that's a totally different conversation, right? That's
absolutely. You're talking about the data. Absolutely. Yeah. Like that's way better. I love data. I think this is, again, as coaches, we're big on the tracking methods. We're not even referring to not tracking, but the thing is that I actually relate to the fact of sometimes letting go, not of tracking, but being just mindful and understanding that your body doesn't get owned by a certain number, and it shouldn't be by a certain, let's say, scale or measurement, or sometimes even a total target, like understanding, yes, what your needs are. That's why tracking tools are there. The reason why we need to understand what nutrients are, that's why tracking is for every beginner. You need to understand what carbohydrates are, what proteins and fats even are, what your intake is, are you getting sufficient, the value of food, and understanding what your micronutrients truly are. Are you getting sufficient fiber? Am I drinking sufficient water? Am I actually doing all those boxes, ticking them off? But once you understand and you're seasoned and you get those things, and you've already been so stressed on maybe, again, focusing on a weight loss goal, or maybe increasing weight, or the fact, like you're even saying, what are you in, a maintenance, a surplus, a cut? Right. I mean, it's pretty relevant for seasons and of course deadlines. But if it starts owning you and you start just getting obsessed, I 100% agree that you need a couple of these.
Yeah, that's where a couple of these, like I'm talking like quite scary where I'm reading like I'm actually reading it and thinking to myself, oh wow, like I almost feel obligated to reach out and make sure you're okay, because this is some really scary dialogue, and I'm serious. Like I've talked about it with one.
I don't know what pro you were. I mean, again, I don't know who was out there that did this, but
I'm actually really getting worried, right? Like because this is actually getting unhealthy, and still looking like
that's self-image, though, Ali. If people, are totally, just are loud and very voicey about certain things, they're usually super unconfident about that. They're so low self-esteem, if they're really constantly always bringing it up, or maybe putting that as a shield. Like I think, again, like body image, back again, how you see yourself is actually what matters the most, guys. It's not what others see in you, it's the way you see yourself.
I think this was just a really cool thing to bring into it too, because I think it's really showcasing as well that when I step out of that stage and I have these new objectives, staying lean was never one of them, not even for an instant. Did I care that my scale? So let me also caveat this. You see, people posting about having these incremental scale weight gains after a show and, putting on no more than 300 to 500 grams each week. Mate, I jumped 3.5 kilos up on my stage weight in the first week. How much do you reckon I'm up now?
You're probably about sitting 15, so that would be like 7 kilos above? What are you at?
No, I was sitting 3.5 kilos above. I am beautifully maintaining and beautifully balanced and 100% stable now at just over 4 kilos up. So
you're 8. Okay, so for what I was, so 8 pounds. 8 pounds. Yeah. 8 pounds. So yeah, that's
right. I removed the fixation on food. I jumped straight to my maintenance calories. I had an initial higher jump, sure, but has that continued to increase week to week? No. Am I consistent with my food? Yep. Is adherence easier? Oh, hell yeah. And am I, at a place now where I'm performing really well in the gym? I've got progressive, increase in all my lifts and everything else. Absolutely. Did I recover that strength faster than if I was to do it really super slow? Absolutely.
Oh, for sure you would. Yeah. And there's benefits and downfalls, right? When it comes down to this. And when you do this, when you go so low, Ali had to understand what she was looking into by that jump that was going to be quite high. And she knew what she was expecting. So it wasn't like, oh my God, what happened kind of thing. It was more of a, I know what to expect. And she knows what she looks like at all stages. I think that's another power. No, of course. And I think when you were small, I mean, you had to get small.
I was so fucking skinny.
And so you getting into some, obviously what you said, 3.5 kilos, that would have been like 7 pounds. I mean, I'm sure you didn't even look it, but at the same time, this helps somebody out. Like it really does. And if anyone that came off the stage did that and they didn't know what was going to happen and, probably had that episode, would have probably freaked out thinking like, oh my God, I just
you see conflicting sides of the camp, right? And I've done reverse processes every way you can possibly do them. I've done them. And this is very different to how I would normally approach it. But then again, I'm never so deep in the trenches with my legs blown off in the final stages of a prep either, right? Like I'm literally eating 400 calories a day more on my lowest low day usually. So I haven't had to experience it like this. I usually increase moderately, maintain for a couple of weeks, then increase again. And then I'm back to my maintenance within like 4 weeks. But this time jumping immediately.
You needed to get out.
I just had to get in, get out. Absolutely. Yep. It was like up to the top of, that
was the whole game plan. Like the whole reason to get down there was like, just, hey, let's test my limits. It's not about trying to metabolically adapt down here. We don't want to even know what this even means. We want to get the hell out. So you guys did the best strategy possible. And I mean, I'm excited to see like going into this year, your showings and, of course, like, I'm not sure what the goals and the plans are. I think that's what everybody's
goals now are obviously bringing up, I set all of my goals around some pretty big things we've got going on with business and with, the redevelopment of my physique, I would say. And we literally threw everything into the travel schedule for the year, which is being in all the main pro-ams. So just being like we all are.
We get to have her back in the US. I love it.
Very nice. And obviously for everyone that is listening to this that doesn't know, we get married in 3 weeks today. So
I'm so
getting ready for the wedding too, and that's an interesting thing. There would have been a lot of people that would have tried to stay lean and small and tiny for that wedding and stay all the way through. That I had
knowing you, I would have thought it was weird. If I would have thought it was the strangest thing if I would have seen you.
I actually had this conversation. Babe, could you imagine looking back at your wedding photos 20 years from now and you look like stage? Like
No, I can't. I like even. I had an off season even look. No, that's no.
Weddings should be more. I don't know, just beautiful and a little softer, not so harsh featured. Yep. So for me, I was like, no, I have no interest in trying to stay like that. So I didn't even do my wedding dress alteration appointment until a week and a bit ago, because I was still trying to put like I still wanted to get to the point where I felt like, okay, this is where I'm actually going to sit for the next 4 weeks, right? So we finally reached that point. We went in and got the alteration appointment, which, by the way, can I just say, I totally missed a calling that's incredibly financially lucrative because wedding dress alter is holy crap, man. That's a license to print money. That is ridiculously expensive.
The whole industry, Ali, what are you talking about? The whole industry is just amazing.
I just turned around to Jacinda and went, how good are you with the sewing?
I'm sure the wedding planners that are listening to this are like, duh, like that's cha-ching, like duh, that's actually where so much, even with venues, I'm even mind blown, like just overall, I'm like, I can own a piece of land and just host weddings there, and that's just how much I'd make.
That's actually a thing. So we waited till then. We waited until I was actually filled back out into all the right places. That then I was like, yeah, okay, now let's go get it fit, because this is where I'm going to cruise along at, right? So the goals for us for the year were around, the big milestones. We had to tick that box, get that, whole process done, and then it's the growing of the physique back for Worlds. It's our travel. We're going to be in Orlando. We're going to be at we're going to be at every single major Pro-Am except for the UK, because the UK falls on the same day as Australia, and that's one of our biggest shows. So we'll be at every single Pro-Am this year. Just really looking forward to getting back into things. Like, I've got my first photo shoot back in Oz in a week and a bit's time. So just getting back into the swing of doing the normal things again that I usually do at this point.
You're traveling again. You're obviously back into the group of going to the shows. That's so exciting. And I mean, I will see you at all the shows that you just mentioned. Obviously not the Australian one, but definitely same situation. I'm not able to go to the UK, but I'm going to be at all the other pro shows as well here in the States. And it's just going to be an epic year. I feel like just deep down, like, you can just get this feeling that you're going to have a really, really good year. And I'm just wishing that for everybody. And I hope we're able to spread some of that good inspiration and good vibes, because it's still lingering. I feel like we're still in that New Year's. I still feel it everywhere I go, like just the overall motivation, people getting the jump start. And I mean, I know a lot of people hate on the New Year's people, but I love it. Honestly, I love being able to see just that jump, just little spark get put into people. I like encourage others to, celebrate it and help and really kind of encourage, because these are the times that you were maybe in those shoes years and years ago. Maybe you were the beginner, and maybe you were that person that just needed that one little push. And I think that, again, like, even right now, it's still kind of in the air. Maybe you're wanting to start something, or maybe not just gym and fitness related. And I know I'm still on that boat. Like, I'm still kind of riding the wave of getting, obviously that motivation to do more skill work. And I think that that's more for my end. It's actually not fitness related, a lot of the goals that I set for myself. And of course, I do have fitness related goals, like building some more mass back on my body, making sure I have my imbalances worked on, and I get all my injuries, situated, and I don't have any more pain on my body. And rather than fighting through the pain and, mind over matter mentality, I want to like dig in and actually find the root of the problem and actually fix myself. And, obviously just have a good balanced approach, like you said, into the whole lifestyle, and not letting just numbers own, rather than instead there to guide and, obviously give us that data of what we're, headed towards, what is happening, but at the same time, having really, really good balance for business. And again, back to skill set. Like, for me, it's more exciting of becoming a beginner. I think this is a lot of the things that I'm taking on this year is going to be more of trying to actually learn from step one for some of these skill sets that it's going to require a lot of, it's patience. And I think that's the bigger thing that I have to get reminded back to time and how things take time. And a skill takes a lot of effort, patience, and time, and back to everything that goes in life, right? That is worth having. We have to actually put that effort in. Maybe also for me, it has to be not just the effort, it has to be the commitment, because there's so many things that I've always wanted to do, but I've never fully committed to them. And I think, again, until now, it's like, and I'll even throw it out there for some of the things that I'm really going to be trying to make sure I learn is even like photography. I feel like I've always loved it. And again, it doesn't mean I'm going to be a photographer. So cool. No, take my word for it. I'm not going to be a photographer. It's not that. I want to know it because I've always had cameras. Like, I've literally had them always around. I've always literally been that person that has that creative eye that wants to take a freaking picture everywhere you go. Like, just overall, just having that knowledge and being able to not just be the model in front of the camera, because I've always just been the person back end
as well, right?
Absolutely. They're so technical, and it's such a heart, in head, obviously headache sometimes, but with anything, learning something from scratch. And again, you're going to have to go to school and obviously learn some lessons and get, obviously some schooling, and just overall get taught and be a student. And back to that, like, again, I'm trying to be that student. And even another really off the wall task that I'm putting on for myself out there, y'all, that is not fitness related. I am obsessed with coffee. And again, one of my New Year's resolutions was to maybe drink a little less wine. And what I've actually done is replace that with coffee now. So it's actually, my memberships, with wine memberships that we had, we actually kind of got those canceled or reduced, and now signed up for like coffee bean memberships from all around the world. So I'm super pumped, because we got obviously the espresso machine. Carrie got me that for Christmas, and it was, he knows how much I love coffee in general. And I look at baristas kind of like artists, because they have a really big craftsmanship. Like I adore
coffee like that.
Take my word, okay? Take my word. By the end of this year, I'm gonna be able to make you latte art, okay? I'm gonna be that barista. I'm gonna like proclaim it, and I'm gonna throw it out there. I will end up being a barista at some point, just for my sake, because I want to be able to do it. Again, back to I'm not gonna go work at a coffee shop, and I'm not gonna go open a coffee shop. Oh well, actually, that actually came up to my notion. I'm like, what if I just move to an island and open a coffee shop? Right, that's just again me. That's so far-fetched. I'm actually just doing it for personal reasons. Okay. I want to be able to grind my coffee and be able to make my art and just honestly know I have another skill set. So anyway, that is my non-fitness related goals besides my fitness related goals that I had mentioned.
My non-fitness related goal is that I'm actually getting a Thermomix, and I'm going to be creating all sorts of amazing foods with my Thermomix.
I love.
So funny because I've never been that barefoot pregnant in the kitchen chick ever. Never done.
I was going to say you and Kristen are about to take over because he's like a chef.
Exactly. But what I'm loving about it is there's a lot of really cool stuff that I can be making that is linked into prep and making prep even more enjoyable for me.
Oh man, I'm excited.
It's also a twofold thing though, because there's lots of cool shit you can do for kids, and Bubby's just starting eating solids, so it's like being able to make some really fun stuff for him. And then complementary stuff to what Christos is doing. Christos is the king when it comes to the cooking of the meat, and then I will be doing all the other stuff. So I'm doing that. And then the other thing which is very cool, because I never thought I would ever get him on a wall. I've been rock climbing for a while, and I finally got Christos to come and do it with us. And I knew he would love it, because you think about it, he's on the friggin' spectrum, man. And this is the sport that is active. You need to use your whole brain on what you're doing, and it's puzzles. It's like solving the puzzle on the wall. So it taps into him at the very spectrum level, and he fucking loved it. And so now he wants to go everywhere where we go. We're taking our kit with us, and he wants to get on random new walls. So when we were in Melbourne, we did 3 different centers. We climbed the highest wall that they've got in Australia, and I am nowhere near proficient at it like Jacinta is, because Jacinta and Shane actually climb outdoors. So they do all
they're like climbers.
Yeah, they do.
I like met some climbers over in Mexico and Bravo, and they're like legit. Like, they
miles high type proper.
They're crazy.
Crazy. This I can't.
They're crazy. I would can't look down. I would die. I'm like, I'm gonna die. No.
So we go climbing with them now, and it's a lot of fun because they're actually training to be able to do this really big holiday at the end of the year, where they're going to climb these massive mountains down in Tasmania, some really high gradient levels too. It's pretty intense, but we're just climbing for fun. And for me, I want to get to a point where I'm quite proficient, but I don't need to be like they are. Like, I don't need to do what they're doing.
Please don't die on me.
We're having fun doing it. And so this is like our thing at the moment. And it's become a lot of fun. So
nature, outdoors. Exactly. Oh, I love it.
Exactly. And challenging, but in a mentally stimulating way, as well as being physical, right? So it's really quite cool, and we're really super enjoying it. So that's kind of on the cards for us for this year too. Like, I think is trying to get to as many different centers as we can, which is a lot of fun. But we're never going to be Shane and Jacinta. We're not doing these crazy outside.
At least you get to go explore as a family. That's a pretty cool
exactly right.
You guys are taking.
I think so too. So yeah, but I think we will actually do an episode for everyone listening to this on goal setting, why it's important, how we do it, how we approach it. I think that will be an episode coming up. So everyone that is, wondering how to pick what they want to do for the year or for the quarter or for the half year ahead, and then
vision board for the year.
Go through that. But I hope that you've just enjoyed having us back and a bit of a recap. And then maybe some insight into how I was seeing things coming into and out of the show might help people that are on their own journey, that, hey, you don't have to be perfect to get started. It's okay sometimes to to fail, because in failing, it gives you a completely different perspective and focus point. And I actually didn't mind it at all, because like I said, I didn't feel like I had failed. I felt like I had won a lot, and I've walked away from it feeling incredibly accomplished, but also with this really clear a sense of clarity and clear vision for where I need to go moving forward. So that was very cool. It's been nice just to be back, to be completely honest. It's been nice to feel more like myself and feel like I'm sitting in my usual off-season physique, which is nice. And I'm excited for everything that's to come.
Absolutely, guys. I am like, just everything you said, 100, I agree. And I'm so excited to be back. I hope you guys enjoyed the catch up. And it's really more about trying to really goal set and achieve what sets your soul on fire. I really want everybody to kind of leave with that, because if it doesn't really make you happy, it doesn't really make you or service your life any better, then, I mean, really, we just don't need it. Okay. So let's cut all ties and goal set on our next episode. And welcome back, guys. It's 2023. Let's rock on this year, and wishing everyone an incredible end of January and just overall start of the year.
Absolutely amazing. Thanks, Steph. Can't wait to see you next time.
Bye, Ali. Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Queen Divas Pod, on Twitter at Queen Divas 4, and follow our hosts on Instagram, Alicia at Alicia Gowans _WBFF Pro, and Steph at Stephanie Ayala 7. See you all next week.